Welcome to my channel. My name's Chance, and we are continuing my top 100 list. In today's video, we have numbers 40 to 31, so we are finally almost into those games that actually matter. Just joking, I actually really like these top 100 lists because I find that just a top 10 list is really just a narrowing of someone's preferences, and those games become a little more specific towards that individual. So I find that top 100s, they really give us a lot more variety, and we kind of get to see some games that we might not hear about as often. So I hope there's something in this video for you today, or something, you know, in the rest of my top 100 series. But you know what? Let's just get things started. Let's dive right into this with my number 40, and that is going to be this small box next to me, Resist. So Resist is a solo game based on the Spanish Rebellion. I don't fully know the history. I'm not a big, war buff, but overall, I absolutely love this game. This game has traveled with me on multiple occasions, and this is one of those games where I really just like waking up in the morning, making a cup of coffee, sitting down on the table, and playing a round or two of Resist. Now, the way this game works is that you are going to be managing kind of a deck of cards. Those are going to be your rebellion. And I think there's like 24 total rebellion members, but you're only going to start with 12 of them in the game. And then I think you're going to put like 3 spies in your deck because those are going to potentially clog up your deck. They don't do anything for you. They're just kind of there to thwart your plans. But you're going to take that deck, you're going to shuffle that up, and then you're going to have a hand of 5 cards. It's kind of like a opposite deck builder. It's a deck reducer. So you're going to take those 5 cards, and then you have 3 missions out in front of you who are going to have a certain number of kind of like guards out there that are protecting the locations that you're going after. You're trying to defeat those locations to score a certain number of victory points to kind of have a successful rebellion. Now, the way that you do this, though, is that you have these 2 cards, are the 2 sides of each card. You have the hidden side and then the revealed side. And you're going to be making that decision. Do you play them hidden or do you play them revealed? And this matters because the hidden side tends to be weaker. It just isn't as powerful, gives you a little bit of a benefit. But the revealed side, super powerful, usually gives you a huge benefit and kind of is like a game-changing thing to use the revealed side. But why wouldn't you just do the revealed side all the time? Well, it's because you are part of a rebellion, and if you reveal yourself, you are going to be captured. That person that you reveal, he's going to be, or he or she is going to be captured, jailed, maybe killed. You just don't know. They are going to vanish from your rebellion, and they are going to be lost to you. Potentially you could do a jailbreak in the future, but for the most part, you are kind of sacrificing someone for that big benefit to try to overcome that mission. And this is why I say it's kind of like a deck milling game, because over the course of the game, to overcome these missions, you are going to have to use their revealed powers, and you're going to be losing these people, and your deck is going to be whittling down. You're potentially going to be adding more spies to the deck, and that's one of the loss conditions. If you draw a handful of spies, your rebellion is over. So I really like this aspect of trying to make that decision of when do you keep that card? When do you take the risk of kind of like holding on to them versus taking that bigger risk of revealing them? And then you have the issue of there's a civilian deck, so some of the guards, if you don't overcome them, they're going to be killing these civilians, and that is going to be negative for your cause. If too many civilians die, then you guys lose hope and you're going to just abandon the rebellion. Overall, this is just a phenomenal game. I love playing it. This theme really stands out to me. Like I said, I'm not really a war person. Like I don't follow that stuff. I'm not a huge fan of kind of those war style games, but this theme just hits for me. I think it's just that rebellion, and the art on these cards is amazing. Like you have these 2 sides of the card where the person, they're just doing something in their day-to-day life, like there's a baker or a carpenter or whatever, and you see them living out their life, and you don't know that they're part of this rebellion. Then the other side, they're completely different. They're out running and gunning and doing things crazy, and you kind of see the dichotomy of these 2 characters, like this just tranquil side of just kind of living in life, but trying to overthrow that government. So that rebellion theme just sticks out for me in this game. I will mention that there is a follow-up to this game, Witchcraft, which I have also played, and I really enjoy it. Same mechanics and everything, but I think the theme just hits better with Resist versus Witchcraft. Although mechanically, I think Witchcraft is the better version of it. Okay, I've talked too much about Resist, but it is one that I think is just great. If you are into solo games or want to give solo games a try, I think it is worth picking up. Okay, let's move on to my number 39, and I'm going to add an extra player to this one. This is a 2-player game. This is going to be Hanamikoji. So Hanamikoji is One of the tensest games that I own. Like, it is a little closer to chess than a lot of the games I play, and we'll get into why that is. But it is a very straightforward game. It is a lane battler, and you're basically trying to give favors to these geishas to win their favor, to win their, I don't know, something. You're trying to win the favor of the geishas over the course of the game by playing cards on your side. If you give them more favors than the opponent, basically you move this token to your side and say, hey, I'm now in their favor. So over the course of the game, you are doing only 4 actions per round. Now, these 4 actions are represented by these little tiles. Incredibly easy to explain, but essentially you have one that's like, you flip it over, you get to discard a card. You flip another one over, you get to place a secret card. So you get to place one face down, and that one won't be revealed until the end of the round. But the other 2 ones are the more interesting actions. I think you have something called like competition, where you choose, the one player makes 2 piles of 2 cards, and the other player chooses one of those piles. And then you have another one, which is gift, where the one player chooses 3 cards, they put those out, and the other player chooses one of those cards. And this is an excruciating decision, because the card distribution, it makes the game super tight. Like, trying to win those favors, you are trying to prioritize winning the ones that you have, you kind of have like this limited information in your hand, and you're trying to decide which ones do you think you can win while not giving your opponent an advantage. So, and then also every time you choose those, like I split, you choose things, like every time you put down cards, you are revealing information to your opponent. It's kind of like a trick taker in that way. Like, every time a trick comes out, every time you play one round of a trick taker, someone is revealing information to you. They are revealing something about their hand. And the same thing happens in Hanamikoji, and you're just trying to keep enough information to yourself while kind of avoiding letting that other person win. Now, I mentioned that this game is a little closer to chess than I usually like, and that's because of this, it's kind of like you are trying to avoid making a mistake. And I feel like that's kind of like chess is, and I'm not a huge fan of that mechanic in a game. But in Hanamikoji, because it's quick, you only have 4 actions per round, I find that this hits for me, and you are really just you're walking on that knife's edge, trying not to screw up. You're trying to make the other player, you're trying to give them information to make them screw up. You're trying to force that end game. And this is something where, like, I like a lot of lighter, smaller box games that kind of just, they have a natural end state. It's kind of like, oh, you played all the cards from your hand, see who wins, clear the board and play it again, type of thing. Hanamikoji, though, you're going to keep playing rounds until someone has met the victory condition. This means that the game can go on for a little while. Like, you are trying to force that end state. You are trying to force your opponent to make a mistake. You are trying to avoid making that mistake. So yeah, it is a very tense game, very easy to teach, and very easy, like, incredibly simple to play, with just excruciating decisions. So that's Hanamikoji, my number 39. Okay, moving on to number 38, and this one is going to be El Grande, adding a few more players, right? This one plays up to 5 players. I really enjoy kind of the mechanics of this game. I have some issues with this game, though. I think it could fall on my list just because of the issues, but overall, I think that the structure of this game, the mechanical structure of the card play is just super fascinating to me. So the way the game works is that it is an area majority game. So you're basically going to be playing out your cubes to these places on the map, and you're trying to have the most cubes to win points. But essentially, like, if there's ties, you still get points, and first, second, and third place are going to gain points. And then you have these other pieces out there, which are your, like, Grandes, and you have the king, and those are going to be worth extra points if you manage to win areas with those pieces in there. So that's kind of your goal. You're going out, just placing your cubes, and you have kind of this court, and you have a province. The province are people you don't have access to. That's going to be kind of what you're recruiting from. So on your turn, you're going to play one of your cards. Basically, you have a set of cards, 1 to, I want to say 13. Oh my goodness. Why, phone? Really? I was in a flow. Look at that. You know, technology. All right, let's start that one over. So in El Grande, you have a hand of 13 cards at the start of the game, and these cards are kind of dual purpose. They're going to determine your initiative, but they're also going to determine how many people you get to recruit to your court. So you kind of have like these 2 different pools. You have like this province, which is where all these people that you don't have access to yet, and then you have your court. The court are the people that you're allowed to basically deploy out to the map. We'll get to deploying them. But so essentially, you are going to be playing your cards, and they're number 1 to 13. The lower cards, so like the 1, 2, and 3, they allow you to recruit a lot of people from your province. Like, they're going to allow you to recruit like 5. But your high cards, like 13 and I think 13, you don't recruit anyone. And that can be an issue, but maybe you're doing it because you need to go first, because those cards you play, the number of cards you play will determine your initiative order. So if you played a higher card than someone, and the rule of the game is that once someone plays a card, you cannot follow with the same number, so that person is kind of locking in their position. You can't, there's no ties during this phase of play. So it's really interesting, that choice of, hey, do I need to recruit people or do I need to go first? Now, why do you need to go first? Well, it's because there's 5 action cards out on the table and you are competing for those action cards. You don't have access to those action cards. It is initiative order will determine when you get to choose what action card you get to take. Because the first person, the person with the highest initiative, they're going to go first, choose an action card out of those 5. And now that pool is reduced to 4. So the second person gets to choose one from that pool of 4. But then, as you can see, if you are last in initiative order, you are not choosing an action card. You just get to take one of the action that is left on the table, which can be really bad for you, because like there are some actions out there that are like, oh, score all 5-point zones. And if you can manage to get yourself positioned to be in multiple 5-point zones and trigger that one at the right time, that can be a huge swing in points. Now, like those scoring phases, like between the main scoring phases are just so important in this game that I feel like one play of this doesn't really make it land until you're at the end of the game. You're like, oh, that's how I should have played this. And I love a game that makes me see that. Like, I love it when a game takes me to the end state and it's like, oh, I see that there's some deeper strategy here. Now let's, and one more thing that I really like about this, there is the Castillo. The Castillo is this thing where you get to drop your little meeples in, your caballeros, and you basically say, I'm dropping in 2 or whatever. Oh no, yeah, the action cards, they allow to like place things out. I'm skipping over a lot of rules for El Grande. I'm just trying to get to the main points here. But so yeah, when you get those action cards, different action cards allow you to place out different amounts of people, and you can always throw people in the Castillo if you have extra caballeros to put out there. And that Castillo is one of the scoring regions, but also during the scoring phase, people are going to secretly select where those people are going to be deployed to. So it has a little bit of this hidden information. It's not entirely deterministic when you're looking at that map with the people out there, because during the scoring phase, there's 3 of them during the game, you're going to choose a little secret location in your disc, reveal what's in the Castillo, and then you're going to score that Castillo, then you're going to deploy those troops to that location that you've selected. And I think this is just brilliant because it really adds a good amount of tension, because you can kind of see like on the board, you're like, ooh, that person wants to go over into this region, like that would really be good for them. I kind of want to compete for that region, but if they have too many people in that Castillo, I could be screwed out of that region. I'll go from scoring like 7 points down to 3. Oh, I don't know if that's worth the risk. And I just love that little hidden information, that little tense decision at the beginning of the scoring round. Now, the problem I have with this game is really just the scoring rounds. I really hate kind of going through different regions. Like there's 3 of them during this game. You have to go through every single region, count up the caballeros in those regions, figure out who gets first, second, and third, figure out if there's a Grande there for the bonus 2 points for the first player if they manage to score in the region that they have their Grande player in. And you're going through like these 9 or 10 regions. After every 3 rounds, you're just going through this. And it's not hard. It goes by pretty quick. It's not like super challenging. By the time you get to the 3rd one though, I would say like counting up the caballeros can be a little annoying. It's like, oh, you have 6, oh, you have 7, like it's a little messy. The game becomes a little harder to parse. Like I feel like that's an important part of area majority games or area control games. Like you need to be able to glance at the map and just kind of parse the game state. Whereas I feel in El Grande, I am doing a lot of counting. Like every time it gets my turn, especially in those later rounds, I'm like, oh, I got to count these again. I got to count these again. So that's just one thing to be aware of in El Grande. Great mechanical gameplay, but kind of an annoying thing with counting up the caballeros in each region and trying to keep track of that and then scoring at the end of every 3rd round or whatever. So, but other than that, it is a great game and I am excited to play it more. Okay, let's move on to my number 37. And that's going to be this box right next to me. This is Votes for Women. This is a 2-player game, and it is kind of a war game, but it is about the suffragist movement. So trying to get women the right to vote in America. And I think this is a really cool theme because, like I said, I'm not a huge war buff, so I don't play a lot of the war games. I have a lot of combat games, but like historical war games are not really my jam, you know? But Votes for Women, this is a really fascinating design choice, like going after this kind of political movement and using that as kind of like the stand-in for a combat war game. And the amount of kind of research they put in this game with the cards, like the event cards that come out, it's just really fascinating to play this game. I love learning about these historical events, having the flavor text on the cards. There's also like a whole pamphlet of just information in this game if you want to go through it. But let's get down to the gameplay for Votes for Women. So it is it's basically a two-player game. I think there's like different modes in there, but I've only played the head-to-head. So one person plays the suffragist, one person plays the anti-suffragist, and it's playing the anti-suffragist feels a little bad. It's like, oh, I'm working towards not giving women the right to vote, and yeah, that's wrong. Let's just be clear about that. But it is just a fascinating perspective to see these historical figures come out. Like it is a very simple game where you have this hand of cards, and on your turn you're going to play one card. The cards are kind of dual use. Basically, you can play it for the event text on there, do some sort of, maybe they're not super powerful, but they have kind of like some interesting things, and there's some things that will just kind of radically alter the game state or radically alter the what you're trying to go for. And or you can play the card to kind of shift your campaigners and throw out more cubes, and you're doing kind of like this tug of war between all the states trying to get more of your cubes out for support versus the other player's cubes. And yeah, it just has a fascinating back and forth with that system of cards and the kind of dual use with the campaigners, and then you can pay these buttons to do things like move your campaigners or re-roll dice, because dice are going to determine how many cubes you get to put out a lot of the time. And then there's some other interesting things going on with, like, there's these battleground states that have special cards associated with them. If you manage to kind of win those battleground states, if you get enough cubes in those areas, you get to take that special card, which gives you an extra bonus action that you could do, which is usually putting out like more cubes on the map and getting more support in those states. And then at a certain point, the game kind of shifts, and it says, like, towards the later end, towards like the third act or whatever, you're gonna potentially have a card come out that says, like, anytime that anyone has 4 cubes in an area, you now win the vote in that state. Like, the states are now voting. Anytime someone reaches that threshold of 4, they win the vote. So now you're pushing to get to that threshold. But the game is going to drive towards an end. Like, you are not going to be competing for these spaces constantly. You are driving towards that end state. And at the very end, if the decision is not made for the votes yet, if not all states if you haven't reached the threshold to meet your criteria, then you are going to go into this super interesting just roll off. Basically, the end game is like, okay, we're done. All the rounds are over. We have not reached the decision. Now we're going to go through every state left to make a decision, and we are going to roll dice and see how many supporters that we get. Whoever has the majority is now going to win that state. Now, I think this could drive some people crazy, because it's kind of like, wait, I just did all this strategic planning to work towards this, and now we're just doing a roll off at each state that's left. Like, we're just rolling dice and see who wins these states. I can see, yeah, some people not enjoying that part, but I find it super fascinating. I find it interesting. There are things that can modify your dice rolls during this phase if you have those campaign buttons. So you have some things that kind of mitigate your luck. One person could be rolling a D6, one person could be rolling a D8. So I find it great that you're kind of working towards that phase, and then I think it's kind of has this nice conclusion just to wrap everything up. You're not constantly going back and forth on this tug of war. You're kind of like, oh, we reached the end state. Let's roll this dice, see who gets this victory. But yeah, I'm loving Votes for Women. I can't wait to play it again. All right, moving on to my number 36, and this one's going to be another solo game on my list coming in. I got a few 2-players and solo games in this section of my list. This is Under Falling Skies. This is the first, like, actual solo game that I played. I think I played, I was playing Scythe solo a little bit during the pandemic. I was playing Arc Nova solo a bit for a little while, and then I was like, you know what? I want to pick up a game that is, like, specifically designed for solo play. I was searching for a little while. I think I saw the shut up and sit down video of it during, like, when it was a print and play game or something. I forget the details, but I decided, you know what, I'm going to pick this one up. It looks like Space Invaders or whatever, and it is amazing. This is such a good design for a solo game. So this is a dice drafting game. You're going to have, like, this super long board on the table, and it's going to be like these alien spaceships are coming down to destroy the city that you are in. And you're going to be rolling these dice and then basically drafting them and putting them into these different areas on your board to activate various things. So you're going to activate, like, you're going to activate the drill, because you're trying to drill down deeper to basically get deeper down and have more cavern space and have more action spaces come available to you. You're going to have things like your gunners or your attack areas, which are going to allow you to destroy enemy ships. But only if the enemy ships are in specific spaces on the board, because there's these little blast zones where those are the only spots that you can destroy an enemy ship. You have to get them in that spot. How do you get them in that spot? By placing a die. Every column can only have one die in it, and the die you place is going to determine how far the enemy ship in that column moves down. And this is such a phenomenal design decision, because you are going between the tension of saying like, oh, I need to have a 5 on this spot to be able to activate this ability on my board, but if I place a 5 here, I'm going to move this alien ship down and it's going to crash into the city or shoot the city or whatever and do some damage to me. So you are constantly kind of like balancing your decisions between, okay, how far can I allow that enemy ship to move, and like what's the threshold I need for this die, because you're also trying to do research. Like you want to activate those research areas to be able to meet that threshold to basically move up this research track, because that's how you're going to learn how to destroy the alien spaceship. So it's just a really fascinating decision where you are drafting this die that is activating the enemy's movement but also activating yours, and you're trying to balance that decision. So yeah, just a great design. I highly recommend this as a solo game. Like I said, Resist was great, but Under Falling Skies is amazing. Also has a kind of like a short campaign that you can go through and unlock some extra abilities to kind of have some more luck mitigation, and you get to unlock more cities, and you get to unlock a few different enemy ships that operate a little bit differently. So there's a good amount of variety in the box as well. It might be kind of hard to get though, because I think it might be out of print, but still, if you see it maybe at a game swap or something, I think it's worth picking up. Number 35, Undaunted Stalingrad. Now this is a big box 2-player game based on the Undaunted series. Now I haven't played any of the other Undaunted games, like Undaunted Normandy or Great Britain or anything. So this was my introduction to Undaunted, and I absolutely love it. Now, once again, back to Resist here. I am not a huge war buff, watch some History Channel stuff and everything, but, not really into that World War II theme too much. But I do really enjoy the mechanics of Undaunted. I will call out that I am very excited to play Undaunted Callisto, because I think the theme is going to be better for me, and it'll probably be my preferred version of it after kind of looking at reviews and stuff of it. But haven't gotten that one to the table yet, so right now we are talking Undaunted Stalingrad. I do think that this one would have benefited if I had a little more familiarity with Undaunted, because it is a head-to-head experience. It does ease you into it, but I feel like if I knew the strategy kind of going into the game, I probably would have played a little bit differently. And when you're playing a campaign game, it's kind of like, I'm probably not going to revisit this one. Now, it's not Legacy, so you can always you could reset it and just play again. But yeah, it's kind of like when I finish a campaign, I'm kind of like, oh, I'm ready to move on now. So I think that's a little unfortunate, is that I'm not going to be able to kind of implement that strategy that I've learned. But I will be able to bring that over to hopefully Undaunted Callisto, so hopefully there's some similarities there. But overall, I want to talk about the mechanics here, because it is a deck builder, but you actually have access to your entire like supply of cards at once. Because you have this one card in your hand that you can basically do like a recruit action from, and that will allow you to go out and like recruit people from your supply. You can recruit like A and B units, and those units or those cards are kind of linked to these tokens out on the map. So the map is going to be dynamic. It has a bunch of square tiles that are going to be building out different areas of the board, and it's actually kind of really cool with Undaunted Stalingrad, because you actually are playing in Stalingrad, and you're going to build out a different section of the war zone every time, and things that happen in that war zone are actually going to carry over from each game. Like you might demolish a building, and that tile is now going to have a demolished building on it. You're going to replace it with the demolished building tile, and that's going to carry over into these other scenarios or these next sessions of the campaign, and that'll change up kind of the strategy on these maps. Now, so on the maps, you're going to have these tokens that represent your different units, and then your cards in your hand are going to allow you to activate those units. So you have like your A squad of riflemen, you need an A squad rifleman card. So you got to play that one, and then you can activate it, taking the action on that, one of the actions on that card, which is like attack or move or control or something like that. Now, what's interesting is that when you do the attack action, so let's say I'm attacking with my riflemen to the opponent's B gunners or whatever. I'm going to roll some dice. So there is some dice rolling in here, and I have definitely gotten wrecked by some dice rolling in Undaunted. So that's something to be aware of if you are not a fan of dice rolling. I find it very exciting. I like the Undaunted dice rolling system. I like the hits system. Like basically the further away you are, the higher die value you need to be able to do a hit. Then there's also things like the other player can be behind find cover, so you need a higher value there. So it might be like, oh, I'm 2 tiles away, you have 4 cover and 2 some defense or whatever, and I need to roll like a 7, and then you're rolling d8, so you need like a 7 or an 8 to hit or something. So maybe they're d10s, I forget. But you're gonna roll those dice, see if you got any hits. Now, if I manage to hit that B gunners, my opponent is now going to have to say, do I have any of those in my hand? And if they do, they have to discard them. They have to trash them because that person has been killed. If they don't, they need to look through their discard pile. If they don't, they need to look through their deck. If they don't, then their units get routed. So it's kind of interesting where the cards you have in your deck are kind of like that squad's health, but they're never fully eliminated because that player can then be like, oh, I'm going to go and recruit some B gunners to get into my deck so I can reactivate them again and get them back into the fight. But it's kind of interesting because if you manage to choose correctly as that attacking player, like maybe I can have a couple choices, like I see their A and B gunners, I'm like, oh, I could attack either one of those and see how this goes, but I chose the B gunners. And if I'm lucky and they have that in their hand, I now reduce their options for that turn. And that's so critical because you don't have a lot of actions every turn of this game. So if I manage to get rid of that person from their hand, they now have a very limited set of actions that they can do on that turn. And I really slow down their pacing quite a bit. So I really like that system of kind of like building out your deck, and those people in your deck are kind of like the health of that squad. And then the other part of this game that I really, really enjoy, I think the best part of Undaunted is really this initiative system. So at the beginning of every round, so you have your hand of, I want to say it's something weird, like 4 cards. You are going to choose one of those cards to play face down, and that card is going to determine your initiative. So maybe it's you play your 9, you flip that over, your other player played like a Fog of War, which is just something that clogs up their hand, which is like a 1 or something. The 9 wins it, so you get to go first. But now that 9, they go into your discard pile. You don't get to do anything with them. You use them to get the initiative. So taking that first turn can be incredibly important in this game, especially towards the later rounds when like you might be able to pull off the win on that first turn if you manage to go first. But if your opponent goes first, they might be able to pull off the win. So you're really competing for that initiative. But early on in the game, you're like, oh, I really need this 9. I really need this person. Like, I got to do that recruit action that they have available to them. I don't know if I want to spend them for the initiative. And it's a really tense decision, probably one of the best decisions in the game of Undaunted. We're definitely going to talk about that again on a future game, but it is a great little design choice for that initiative token. It kind of reminds me a little bit of El Grande because like you're playing those cards for the initiative, and that action order is just so important to the game. So Undaunted Stalingrad, I am so close to being done with this campaign. I think we have like 2 more scenarios left, and then we're going to be closing it out and moving on to Undaunted Callisto, which I am super excited about because I do think the Undaunted deck building system and the style of play, it's a little weird at first, but I am really, really enjoying it. All right, so that is my number 35. Moving on to number 34. This is another big box 2-player game, and this one is going to be Star Wars Rebellion. Man, if you are looking for an epic, thematic, like full afternoon game, Star Wars Rebellion is the one. Yeah, like I think I already talked about War of the Ring. I really like War of the Ring, but it can feel a little slower. It feels a little kind of plodding along. It is a great war game though, and a fantastic thematic experience with the War of the Rings. But I think if I was going for a thematic experience, Star Wars Rebellion is the way I would go. Note that I'm not a super Star Wars fan. I'm actually more on the Star Trek side. I wish it would be cool if there was a version of this in Star Trek, but you know, Star Trek doesn't focus on the combat as much. It's more of a cultural program, whatever. But Star Wars Rebellion, I think, delivers a fantastic experience. So the Rebellion player is going to, at the start of the game, going to choose a planet to be like their rebel base. And that rebel base is going to be what the Empire player is seeking out. They're trying to destroy the Rebellion. They want to suppress it. So the Rebellion is basically, it's a little bit of a kind of a cat and mouse game because the Rebellion player does have a card in their hand that allows them to shift their base if they want to. So essentially you're going to choose that, then the Rebellion or the Empire is going to go out, they're going to spread and kind of get their tendrils out, search out with their probe droids and try to find where that Rebellion base is located. And as the Rebellion player, you're just trying to hide long enough. You're trying to stay alive. You're trying to complete these quests. You get these cards in your hand that's kind of like these quest cards that you're going to go out, try to cripple the Empire with those things, try to get enough support to get that rebellion off the ground and up and running on its own, and get enough support from all the planets to overthrow that Empire. And it is a great game of just trying to figure out how do you pull those things off with these limited resources as a Rebellion player. Because you're going to see that Empire, they're going to just be building these gigantic ships, and you're just going to be like, oh no, That's bad. I don't know if I can survive this. But you're also going to be deploying troops to your rebel base and potentially building up that stronghold. And that Empire player is going to be like, oh, I need to throw more forces into here, more forces into there to be able to overcome that rebellion base. And then if you, like, I've had one game where I had this whole Empire fleet coming down on me, and I managed to move my base at the last minute. I was just like, and I'm out of here. Like, I'm gone. I can't stay here anymore. This is crazy. Just a really great experience with this Star Wars theme, and kind of that really strong asymmetry between the players, between that rebellion side feeling limited and trying to, you know, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, which isn't possible, but because they're bootstraps. But other than that, just a fantastic experience. Now, there is the fact that this is a very hard game to learn. It's incredibly complicated, takes forever to play. Print out reference sheets, because we were referencing things so often in this game that it definitely takes a while to get through. It is also one of the harder games for us to return to, because it does take kind of like a full rules refresh to get this one back to the table. But other than that, it is still just, it's an experience that I don't think is delivered by any other game. Now, I also really like the action selection system. It's kind of like you're committing some of your leaders out there, so you basically get to commit leaders to do certain tasks on the board, and like you get to see what leaders the other person has committed. And then you can kind of hold back leaders to be kind of like your defensive strategy to kind of oppose the other person's leaders. So if you hold back the right people, you can kind of use them to try to thwart your opponent's plans, which is really cool. I really like this phase of putting out those leaders and seeing what the other person is going to be trying to do, so you can make your plans around that, going back and forth on that player turn order. So yeah, Star Wars Rebellion, fantastic experience. If you have the time to learn it, if you have the time to play it, I think this one's worth trying. I do have some more two-player games that I think are just easier to table and still deliver a similar experience in one of my future videos that's going to be coming out. But for now, let's just say it is a great game. It's in, you know, BGG Top 100, and it deserves to be there. All right, let's move on to my number 33, and this is going to be the box next to me. This is Aquatica. So Aquatica is interesting because this is one of the few more, I would say, multiplayer solitaire games. There is some interaction with it. It's one of these games that it's kind of more Euro-y, though. It's not kind of like other players are getting in the way. There are some cards that are going to affect other people, especially if you get the expansion Cold Waters. But it is a little more solitaire, and that's usually not my jam, you know. That's not my favorite thing to do. But Aquatica's system, oh man, it has this just super unique system of card sliding. So, and also it has a Concordia style hand management system, which is, it's a system that I love. You have this hand of cards, which are like your sea creatures or whatever, and basically on your turn, your main action is just playing one of those cards, and you take those actions. Now, when you do that, and it's going to be things like recruit a new character, or conquer a location, or buy a location, or something like that. Now, these cards, though, they're going to go into your discard pile, and then you have one card called the Matrona, and that is your refresh card. So essentially you're playing this hand management game where you're going to be playing these cards, and then you have to decide when you play that Matrona to refresh to get all your actions available again. Same thing with like Concordia, right? You have that one refresh card that gets all those cards back in your hand, so you now open up all the possibilities of play. But you're also trying to kind of delay that, because that is kind of a dead turn. That refresh turn is just, you're doing nothing except for prepping for the next turns. So you're constantly saying, how long can I put this off? How do I need those other cards? Can I do something else that's going to push me in the right direction? Or do I need to play that Matrona, take that dead turn just to kind of do a little reset so I can do more things now? So I really like that hand management system. Then the card sliding is phenomenal. You're going to conquer these locations. They're going to go to your board, and basically they're going to have, you get maybe some bonus effects on these cards, but the big thing is like the resources, because there's no like keeping track of like how many coins you have or how much strength you have or whatever, because you're just going to play a card, and then if you can, you're going to slide these cards up to get resources to like improve your combat strength or your conquer strength, or improve the amount of money you have. But these locations also have these empty bubbles on them, and those empty bubbles are just blockers. They just stop you from sliding those cards up, and you have to figure out a way to overcome those empty bubbles. There's going to be cards that can allow you to push cards up to get past those things. There's going to be other locations that you can conquer to allow you to slide that card up to get past those blocker bubbles, and it is just a fantastic puzzle. And when you manage to pull off one of those big combos, it is so satisfying, sliding up multiple of those cards and scoring locations. It is an incredibly pleasing game. And also, I will mention that the base game of Aquatica is one of the only games that I was like, this is too short. I want this to play longer. And then I picked up the Cold Waters expansion, and it did exactly what I wanted it to do. It makes it play longer. It does make the teach a little more complicated because you're going to have these tribes that you're going to be able to kind of recruit to get an extra bonus power during the game. I think it adds a nice amount of variety. Like, I do really like that, but it does, I'm just going to mention, does make the teach take a little bit longer because you got to teach those tribe cards. That's my preferred way to play Aquatica, is with the Cold Waters expansion. Let's move on to number 33, and this is going to be another ocean-based game, and this is the small box next to me, and that is Sail. So I've done a review of Sail. This is one of my earlier videos on this channel. Probably quality is not great, but you know, if you want to check that out, feel free. I'll talk about it way more in that video than I do here. But Sail is a two-player cooperative trick taker game, and this one is so cool. Like, you have this diamond board that you have your ship, and your ship is going to be basically, you get to move it towards the player that wins the trick because it has this, you're moving on these diagonals basically, and you're trying to kind of get that ship, you're trying to guide it around these mountains, you're trying to guide it around the Kraken. There's tentacles out on the board that you're trying to avoid being hit because then you're going to have to take damage. The Kraken is another thing that you're trying to kind of manage at the end of the round, because you are going to be taking damage based on how strong the Kraken is, how much you've angered the Kraken over the course of the game. But the core of this game is that trick taking. The trick taking is, it's very kind of deterministic. You have full open information on the board, so you can always look at the discard pile, you can always look at the Kraken pile, you always know what cards have already been played during the game. So as you play your tricks, you have kind of this narrowing field of possibilities that you are trying to work out and not communicate with your partner what you're trying to do. You're trying to be like, oh, I'm playing this card. Hopefully you can figure out what I'm throwing down here. You got what I'm doing? Like, pay attention. This card right here, you better play the right card once I played this card. This is the one that I had to play. You need to play the other one that I know you have in your hand. And then they don't, and you're like, no! Why? So yeah, it is just a phenomenal design. I also really like the asymmetry you get with the pirates that are in the game, so that gives you a little special power. Then the balance of the trick taking, so like I said, you're going to be moving towards the player that wins, but the first person that wins 4 tricks will end the round. So you are also trying to manage this balance of, like, if you want to maximize your movement per round, you want to make sure that you're not going to be ending that round too early, or I think it's maybe 5 tricks or something. But either way, you want to make sure that the opponent, you're kind of passing the trick back and forth to say, hey, you win a couple, okay, now stop winning, I need to win a couple, okay, I'm going to stop winning, win like 1 more, and then I'll win 1 more, and we're going to get the full, like, 8 tricks for this round. But I've had rounds where it's just like the person just accidentally wins like 4 in a row, and it's like, oh, I guess the round's over. We did not go very far. That's a problem. And also, you are constantly pushed to winning those tricks. You want to be able to move forward because there's these storms that you have to pass. You have a storm that's chasing you to push that boat forward, and if you don't manage to move far enough forward, that storm catches you and you sink. So yeah, this one's fantastic. I backed Sail Legacy. I'm super excited to play it. This is a phenomenal trick taker, definitely a brain burner, super crunchy trick taker, very kind of on that deterministic side, a lot less randomness than I get in some other trick takers, and very calculating. But yeah, Sail, phenomenal little trick taker. I forgot, I need to call out that I do have the expansion for it, and I do think the expansion is basically required for this game because it adds more scenarios. I think the base game is a little bit lacking. It is not worth the value you're getting, and the expansion's expensive. I don't know. I wish the expansion was just in the base box. I don't know, like, it's frustrating that they did not include that in the base box. So that's the only downside of this one. On to the last game for this video, and this is my number 31, and this game is Viticulture. This is one of the oldest games in my collection, and this is the Viticulture Essential Edition. I want to make sure I make that clear. That's I think that's like really the main one that's available these days. But Viticulture is a worker placement game where you are trying to manage a vineyard. Now, there are just some really cool design choices in this one. Now, this is the game that I think, if I remember correctly, kind of launched Stonemaier Games into existence, right? Like, this was their big title. This was Jamie Stegmaier's, did I get that name right? I hope I got that name right. But whatever. This was the one that really put them on the map, that launched that whole whole empire of Stonemaier Games. And yeah, I see why. So at the start of the round, the first player is going to choose where to put their rooster. Their rooster, this is kind of like that initiative order. I love games that allows a player to kind of choose their initiative. Do you want to go early or do you want to go later? Now, in this choosing your initiative order, like going later is probably going to give you more powerful benefits, but going earlier, that's going to allow you to take those worker placement spots, because this is worker placement with blocking. You can block someone out of the spaces. And there's going to be 2 different phases during this game. You're going to have, I think it's like the springtime and then like the winter time. And in the springtime, you are going to be doing things like building out your structures, planting your grapes, getting more grape cards, hiring people to help you with building. And that's going to be very important for you to get the spaces that you need. Because if you are like, oh, I have to build this turn, I have to build a trellis. Like if I don't build a trellis, I can't plant these grapes, which means I can't harvest in the winter, which means that this round will be kind of screwed. So if you don't choose the right initiative order and someone else is like, you know what, I'm going to build this turn. And then it's like, no, I can't do it. You've ruined my entire plan. And then you usually do things like, I'm going to go and draw cards because those cards are ridiculous. They break the game. So I'm just going to take a card and hopefully find one that breaks the game in the way that I need it to break the game. There's definitely some randomness in those cards, and some of them are going to be more beneficial to you than others. But I think the cards are phenomenally designed. Like, I love the fact that you take that risk, you get that randomness, and you get the things that's just going to be like, oh, this is totally game changing and is going to radically alter my possibilities. And then you move into that winter phase. Ooh, man, that harvest phase or whatever. And this is where it's like, oh, if you're playing with 2 players, only one of you can go to that harvest spot. And it's like, wait, only one of us can harvest grapes? That doesn't make any sense. Now, overall, thematically, yeah, I don't know why if someone else harvests their farm, you can't harvest your farm. Doesn't really make any sense, but makes for a phenomenal game experience. And then, yeah, so you're going to harvest those grapes, you're going to put them into your barrels, and then what's awesome about this is that at the end of that last phase, you're going to age the grapes in your barrels. You're also going to age any grapes that you have in your little wine cellars, and this is going to allow you to basically bump the value of those grapes up. But you have these hand of contracts that you're trying to deliver on, so you only need certain ages, so you're trying to like balance what do you produce out of your barrels to get into that age zone of your wine cellar to be able to deliver on those goods, and then you're going to be able to deliver on those contracts and fulfill those contracts, which are going to bump up your income for the round, potentially giving you more money, but also work you towards those victory points that you need to win. Because this is a race game, I think the first person to 20 points triggers the end of the game, and whoever has the most points wins the game. Oh, I gotta call out the Grande worker. So the Grande worker in the Essential Edition, this is kind of like the person that gets to override things. So you get to override that worker placement blocking. And this one is so important. Like, you can be in that early phase in that spring round and you're like, ooh, I really need to take that action that person just took. Like, I think I want to use my Grande worker to go there. Like, I can override it. I can do the same thing they just did. But then you're looking at the winter and you're like, oh, but I really need a harvest. So now you have to decide, like, do you spend your Grande worker in that spring phase? Like, do you do that thing that you really think you need to do? Or do you save them for the winter when you're like, if someone takes that spot, I'm going to be just wrecked this round, so I have to have my Grande worker for that one. And balancing out that decision is just so much fun in this game. Like, yeah, Viticulture does a great job. It is one of my favorite worker placement games, and I just love the theme with aging those grapes. There's a little bit of randomness with those cards, so that can kind of turn some people off, but I really enjoy this one. This is, I also play it mostly at 2 players. This is one of my wife's favorite games, so it's one that we kind of open up a bottle of wine and we'll play some Viticulture. So that is my number 31, and that is the end of today's video. So I want to just thank you for watching, and thank you for spending your time with me. And, please like and subscribe, because I got, looks like 3 more of these videos coming out. So if you want to know when they come out, yeah, hit that subscribe button. But yeah, I will talk to you next time.